All right, hello everyone, and welcome to our lecture on media literacy. This is for Journalism 101, Intro to Mass Comm. My name is Kelsey Stewart. This is with Moorpark College. So, what is media literacy? Media literacy is the ability to interpret and create personal meaning from hundreds, even thousands of verbal and visual symbols that we take in every day. It's the ability to challenge and question, the ability to be conscious about what is going on around you. Developing media literacy, that is obtaining an understanding of mass media and how they construct meaning, requires following a crucial process that takes us through the steps of description, analysis, interpretation, evaluation, and engagement. So this critical process of media literacy we are going to go into depth with. In regards to the critical process, this is how it kind of got established. We can all be cynics of the mainstream media news that surrounds us, but instead of channeling cynicalism, let's instead channel healthy criticism, where a cynical viewpoint involves some form of intolerance or either too little or too much information. For example, watching an incredibly argumentative coverage of a political debate, our overlying reaction could be to trash the entirety of democracy. Instead, let's be proactive about it. In response, let's activate the critical process of analyzing media. This would include researching and understanding the complex social process involved in a national election. Engaging in the critical process stresses the subtle distinction between amassing information and becoming media literate. So, description. Let's take the coverage of a national election and describe what you see from two opposing publications. Let's use Fox and CNN, just for examples. So we would identify similarities and differences that will help to polarize a launch point. Do they have similar reporting strategies? Who are they interviewing? What are the backgrounds of their sources? Like what type of authority sources are they using? What was the topic or theme of the story? Where did they get their facts from? These are a few questions that we could ask. Paying close attention and taking notes, we would research the subject under study and determine critical analysis of it. In the second stage, we will isolate patterns that call for closer attention. At this point, we will decide how to focus the critique, discovering and focusing on significant patterns that emerge from the description stage. So let's take a closer look at the coverage of both CNN and Fox during election season. Do either media award more coverage of a certain political party? Do they provide both positive and negative coverage of candidates across party lines? Do they cover equally in each state? Are the platforms of politicians discussed in length or only hot topics covered? What images are used to expand their coverage? And what are the themes of each political candidate's image? Are they positively reflected on each political publication? These are questions that we would analyze. All right, and here we have interpretation. So this stage, we try to determine the meanings of the patterns we have analyzed. The most difficult stage in criticism demands an answer to the so what questions. So let's take a closer look at the interview process with the sources from each publication's coverage. What about the positioning of the source in the live interview? Did the source have adequate room? Was a reporter in the position of authority? Did they give opportunity for the source to answer correctly and give them time to think about the question? Those are things that we would look for. How about were the statements from the source pulled from an original interview? Does the paper or publication have did they show that there's an actual live interview going on? Where did they get the original statements from the source? Or were they pulled out of a stream of social media posts? Where are they getting their answers from? Okay, so the fourth stage of the critical process is focused on making an informed judgment. Building on description, analysis, and interpretations, you are better able to evaluate the fairness of a group of reports. At this stage, you can grasp the strength or weaknesses of the news media under study and make critical judgments measured against your own frames of reference. This stage, the evaluation stage, differentiates the review from the critic. Most reviewers, for instance, in newspapers are limited by daily time or space constraints and can only offer key information about critical programs that end with personal judgments, with many not moving beyond the writer's own frame of judgment or personal taste. The fourth stage should be about finding the bigger picture. In this stage, we take all that we have described, analyzed, and interpreted to put together a rough outline of findings. So, does Fox's coverage of national elections only result in positive coverage for Republican candidates and limit positive exposure to Democrat? Or are they only offering negative exposure to all Democrat and independent candidates? Can the same be said of CNN, but in a different light? Do they ever cover Republican candidates in a positive light? So, the final stage is engagement. To be fully media literate, we must actively work to create a media world that helps serve democracy. Engagement might involve something as simple as writing a formal letter or email to these media outlets to offer a critical take on the news narratives. It can also mean jumping in on those online conversations attached to the news articles. This can be contacting various media producers or government bodies like the Federal Communications Commissions with critiques or ideas, organizing or participating in public media literacy forums, or learning to construct different types of media narratives ourselves in order to participate directly. Producing actual work for media outlets might involve writing news stories for a local newspaper, producing a radio program or podcast on a controversial or significant issue. The key to this stage is to challenge our civic imaginations to refuse to sit back and cynically complain about the media without taking some action that lends our own voices and critiques to the process. So there is the illusion of choice. Currently, as we've talked about in depth, there are 6 media giants that now control a staggering 90% of what we read, watch, and listen to. So we have GE, which has Comcast, NBC, Universal Pictures, and Focus Features. We have News Corp, that's got Fox, Wall Street Journal, and the New York Post. We have Disney with ABC, ESPN, Pixar, Marvel, and Miramax. We have Viacom with MTV, Nick Jr., BET, CMT, and Paramount Pictures. We have Time Warner with CNN, HBO, Time, and Warner Brothers. And lastly, we have CBS with Showtime, Smithsonian Channel, NFL.com, Jeopardy, and 60 Minutes. So how do we get the full story? Well, the biggest way that you can get a full story and full coverage is at a localized point. So your local newspaper is going to have the best contacts and the best reporting styles in a sense because they're going to be closer to the actual story with city council, mayor, and possibly your fire chief or your sheriff's department. So if you're looking for local coverage of a breaking news story that's happening in your area, but it's also being covered at a national level, then you're going to know that your local news story is probably going to get the best scoop. So you want to support your local newspaper. That can also be said for college papers. And here's our pitch for the Moore Park Reporter. Obviously, the student newspaper has an in with just kind of getting the stories, the full story at Moore Park College. So check it out. So also, you want to research the owners, though, of the news source you are reading. So you want to check for an about page. If they are linked or affiliates of a big mainstream newspaper, then that will also tie into, possibly their biasm or who they're going to support. You want to make sure you're an active consumer. So you want to think critically about what you are reading and always compare it. If you are a CNN supporter, then read the same story in Fox just to see what their angle is. If you're a Fox reporter, read the same story that go on CNN so you can compare the information that each of the stations report and publish. So at the heart of media literacy is the principle of inquiry. Who created this message? What techniques are being used to attract attention? What lifestyles, values, and points of view are represented in this message? How might different people understand this message? What is omitted from this message? Every mainstream media will release stories that have a main theme or an idea or a message, whether they intend to or not. This is not the fault of anyone. It is just what it is. It is up to you all to make sure that you never stop asking questions and you always seek out to find an answer for yourself. So no news source will be unbiased. These are options that I read. I love these 5. So we have the Global Investigative Journalism Network, OAN, Epoch Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Columbia Journalism Review. I read these daily. I really enjoy these publications. You might not like them, but these are what I like to read. So I'm just recommending them. Here's our sources for the lecture. If you guys have any questions on media literacy, feel free to ask me. But again, the main point is to research, is to back up your sources, back up what you're reading, compare, analyze, and engage. All right, thanks for tuning in.